Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Koala English Podcast. I'm Samantha, and I'm really happy you're here today. If you listened to Part 1, you already learned the basics of negative prefixes like un, dis, and in, and how they help you understand the opposite meaning of words. But today, we're going a little deeper. Let me ask you something. You tried to guess a word, and it just didn't sound right? For example, why do we say disloyal but not unloyal? Why does one sound natural? And the other sounds a little strange? This is where things get interesting, because negative prefixes are not just simple rules. There's a deeper system behind them. And once you understand it, your English will start to be natural. Today, you'll learn a simple and safe prefix you can always use, why some words feel right and others don't, and how prefixes can change not just meaning, but feeling. If you enjoy learning English with us, please subscribe to the Koala English Podcast, and let's learn English together. Let's begin. Step 10. Non, the clear, simple one. Now let's look at another very useful prefix. And this one is probably the easiest to understand. It is non. This prefix simply means not. And in many cases, it feels very direct, very clear, and very practical. Let's look at a few examples. A smoker is a person who smokes. A non-smoker is a person who does not smoke. Simple. If a train is non-stop, it does not stop on the way. If a frying pan is non-stick, food does not stick to it. If a ticket is non-refundable, you cannot get your money back. If a book is non-fiction, it is not a made-up story. It is based on real facts, real people, or real events. And sometimes, non appears in everyday vocabulary in slightly different ways. For example, nonsense means something silly, absurd, or not true. If someone says something very strange, you might think, that's nonsense. Another example is non-payment. This means a payment was not made. For example, the service was canceled because of non-payment. It is often used in more formal, practical, or descriptive words. It does not always feel emotional. It feels clear, almost like labeling something. And one small note here. Sometimes non is written with a hyphen, like non-smoker or non-fiction. Sometimes style guides or dictionaries may write it differently. So if you are not sure, check a dictionary. Step 11. A few extra negative prefixes. Now, there are also a few smaller negative prefixes that are less common, but still useful to know. You may not use them every day, but when you see them, you'll understand more. The first one is a. For example, typical means normal or expected, but atypical means not typical, something unusual. For example, his reaction was atypical. It was not what people expected. Another example is atheist. A theist believes in a god. An atheist does not. Next is ab. A common example is abnormal. If something is normal, it is usual. If something is abnormal, it is not usual. For example, the doctor said the test result was abnormal. Then we have an. This one is much less common in everyday English. A scientific example is anhydrous. Hydrous means containing no water. This is not a word most learners need every day, but it helps you understand that negative prefixes appear in many fields, even science. And finally, we have anti. This one means against. For example, antisocial describes someone who does not like social interaction very much. He's very antisocial at parties. Anticlockwise means in the opposite direction of a clock. Turn the lid anti-clockwise. And antibiotic is medicine that fights bacteria. So here, anti means against something harmful. Step 12. There are patterns, but no perfect rules. Now, let's stop here for one very important truth. And this truth can save you a lot of frustration. Negative prefixes do not always follow perfect rules. Yes, there are patterns. Yes, some prefixes often go with certain kinds of words. But no, you cannot always guess correctly. And this is why learners sometimes feel confused. You may think, if M goes before P, then maybe every word like that takes M. But English is not always that simple. There are patterns and there are exceptions. There is logic, but not a perfect formula. So, how do you really learn this? Not by trying to control every rule, but by practice, by reading, by listening, by checking a dictionary when you are unsure, and slowly you start to feel what sounds right. That feeling matters, because language is not only about rules, it is also about familiarity. Step 13. Same root, different prefix, different meaning. Now, this part is very important because sometimes the same root word can take different prefixes, and the meaning changes in different ways. Let's look at some examples. First, disable and unable. These are not the same. Unable simply means someone cannot do something. For example, I'm unable to come tomorrow. This means I cannot come. But disable is different. It means to make something not able to function. For example, they disabled the machine for safety. Or when we describe a disabled person, the word has a specific meaning related to physical or mental condition. So even though both words connect to able, they are not used in the same way. Now let's look at discover and uncover. These two words are also different. Discover means to find something, sometimes by accident, sometimes by learning something new. Scientists discovered a new species, but uncover means to reveal something hidden. The journalist uncovered the truth. Uncover is about removing what hides something. Now let's look at discomfort and uncomfortable. Again, not the same. Discomfort is usually a noun. She felt discomfort in her back. This sounds more physical, more medical. But uncomfortable is an adjective. This chair is uncomfortable. So one names the feeling. The other describes the experience, and one more pair, disorganized and unorganized. These can overlap a little, but they are not always used in the same way. A disorganized person is messy, confused, not well arranged. but unorganized is often used more for systems, spaces, or groups. The office is unorganized. The difference is subtle, but it shows us something important. You cannot always rely only on the prefix. You must also learn how the whole word is used. Step 14. Don't like and dislike are not exactly the same. Now, let's go back to a word we already know. Dislike. This is a very useful word, but there is a small nuance here, and it's worth noticing. If you say, I don't like coffee, that sounds mild. It means coffee is not your preference. Maybe you just don't enjoy it very much. But if you say, I dislike coffee, it feels more direct, more negative. It suggests a stronger bad feeling, so both are correct. But they do not feel exactly the same. Don't like is softer. Dislike is stronger. And this is one of the beautiful things about English. Small changes can create different shades of meaning. Step 15. Important exceptions you should notice. Now, let's talk about something else that matters. Some words do not follow the pattern you might expect. These are exceptions, and they are worth learning. For example, married becomes unmarried, not immarried. Popular becomes unpopular, not irreliable, becomes disloyal, not irreliable. Respect becomes disrespect, not unrespect. So, this is your reminder. Even when patterns help, the real answer is sometimes just usage. The correct form is the form English speakers actually use, and that is why exposure matters so much. Step 16. Be careful. Not every word beginning the same way has a prefix. Now, here is a warning that many learners need. Just because a word begins with letters like un, dis, ab, or an, that does not always mean it has a negative prefix. Sometimes, that is just how the word begins. For example, under, this is not a negative prefix word. It simply means below something. Discuss, this does not mean not cuss or anything like that. It is just the word discuss, not a negative form. Able. This begins with ab, but that does not mean it has the prefix ab. It just means capable, angry. This begins with an, but that does not mean it has the prefix an. It is simply the word angry. So be careful. Do not try to break every word into prefix plus root. Sometimes a word is just a word. Step 17. Miss is different. Now let's add one more important warning. Many learners think miss is just another negative prefix, but it is not the same. Miss does not mean not. It means wrongly or in a wrong way. For example, inappropriate means not appropriate, but misappropriate means to take or use something wrongly, often dishonestly. That is a completely different idea. Another easy example is understand and misunderstand does not mean not understand. It means to understand wrongly. That is different. So remember, not and wrongly are not the same thing, and miss belongs to that second idea. Step 18. Even in and im are not always negative, and here is one last subtle point. Sometimes in and im do not mean not at all. For example, immigrate does not mean not migrate. It means to move into a country, and inflame does not mean not flame. So, again, you cannot assume every word with in or im is negative. Sometimes the letters are part of a completely different meaning. And this brings us back to the deeper truth of the whole lesson. Learn the pattern, but trust real usage. Because English gives you clues, but real meaning always lives inside the whole word. And now there's something even more powerful you've added today. Not just un, dis, or in, but more tools in your understanding. You now know that sometimes English uses non, a simple, clear way to say not, like non-smoker, like non-fiction. No emotion, no confusion, just clear meaning. So when in doubt, non is your safest choice. And you've also seen that English has even more small tools, ab, and, anti. They may not appear every day, but when they do, you won't feel lost anymore. But here is something very important, and I want you to really remember this. Even though patterns exist, English does not follow perfect rules. Sometimes you can guess. Sometimes a word follows the pattern. Sometimes it doesn't. English follows patterns, not strict rules. And that's okay, because language is not only about rules. It's about experience. It's about seeing words again and again until they feel familiar. And today, you also learned something deeper. Sometimes two words look similar, but they are not the same. Unable and disable. Discover and uncomfortable. Same root, different meaning. So now you don't just look at the prefix. You look at the whole word. You feel how it is used. You also saw something small, but very powerful. I don't like it. I dislike it. But they feel different. One is softer. One is stronger. This is how English really works. Not just meaning, but feeling. And then there are exceptions. Words that don't follow the pattern you expect. Unmarried, unpopular, disrespect. So sometimes you don't guess. You notice, you remember, you become familiar. And one more thing, very important, not every word that looks like it has a prefix actually has one. Under, discuss, display, angry, able. Sometimes a word is just a word. And you also discovered something new today. Miss does not mean not. It means wrongly. So to misunderstand is not to not understand, but to understand in the wrong way. And even prefixes like in and im do not always mean negative. Immigrate, inflame. So again, meaning comes from the whole word, and this is where everything becomes clear. English is not a list of rules. It is a system of patterns mixed with real usage. Because here is the truth. Fluency is not about memorizing rules. It's about developing a feeling for the language. So next time you see a new word, don't panic. Don't stop. Just pause for a moment and ask yourself, do I recognize something here? Do I see a pattern? Because maybe you already understand more than you think. And that is the moment when learning becomes easier, when reading becomes smoother, When confidence starts to grow, step by step, you are not just learning English, you are unlocking it. And that is a powerful place to be. If this episode helped you, please like, share, and subscribe to the Koala English Podcast. And if you can, send this episode to someone who is learning English too. One small idea can completely change the way we understand a language. Keep going, even when it feels slow, because step by step, you are building something real. And I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep listening, keep noticing, and keep growing. Bye for now.